What if I told you that if you follow my protocols, you can wake up one morning and simply run a half marathon? My name's Salvatore. I'm a humble 9-to-5 office worker, someone that loves to run on a weekly basis, ride his bike to work, zip around in it, save time, money on parking, as well as like fuel costs too. And in this one, I want to take you through, I guess, the conquering the mountain of something big, but how having an active lifestyle or having certain protocols, which I'm going to go through, will enable you to kind of see a mountain and go and conquer it. So that's kind of this. So how on earth did this come about? A half marathon is 21.1 kilometers, and it was kind of in the Easter long weekend on the Good Friday. My girlfriend and a friend of hers wanted to meet at go to a new bakery that opened up at Glenelg in Adelaide called Shadow Baking, which is kind of taking shadow boxing from the Wu-Tang Clan and kind of like, appropriating that. That's kind of cool, but not a lot of people knew that. I reckon they went there. But anyways, side tangent. So I was like, well, if I run from my house to Glenelg a bit further and back, I think that will be a half marathon. So in my mind, I'm like planning that and I'm like, okay, well, that seems about right. So that's the idea. Now, how we kind of got there, I think the biggest thing for me, and I've kind of heard about this many times, I've talked about this many times, and I kind of heard it reaffirmed in a podcast the other day I was listening to, is the 80-20 rule. So for running, you want 80% of it to be kind of in a slower, a zone 2 effort. So you're not kind of overtly taxing your body and it has time to recover and not, putting it through undue stress, which will result in injury. And that 20% is the faster efforts to build your capabilities, have the safety net to do so. And then kind of everything else just nothing sexy, just nice and easy, nice and solid. Slowly that will get faster, but just take your time and everything will work out. And this kind of long run, I guess, is kind of, or half marathon, is kind of in that 80%. I mean, it's closer to the 20, but it's kind of in that like nice zone. It's not too hard yet, but it's kind of like getting close. So it's kind of cool to note that it's part of that training too, which is really exciting. So I guess that's kind of that. And I guess if you follow me on Strava, you'll be able to see exactly what I mean. Now, I distinguish the 80 and from the 20 by having 2 emojis on my runs, either a turtle, which signifies 80, the slow runs, double turtle for long runs, single turtle for just easy runs, and then a rabbit or like a timer or something, like for mostly rabbits, for fast run, tortoise in the hare, right? So there's that. So I guess that's like probably the biggest thing that's helped, I'd say. And then aside from that and kind of supplementary to that, you can't run when you're hungry. So for running, what you have to know and understand is you have to be, because I run first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning is a bit difficult to kind of eat a meal and go running because of how like running works versus cycling. So how does one get around that? Simple. From the night before, you have to have a high carbohydrate meal, carb loading. It's a term we've all heard before. So basically the point of this is that we need a lot of carbohydrates to fuel our muscles in terms of fill them up in the form of what's called glycogen. That glycogen gets utilized and converted into, I think, ATP. So obviously when we eat like high carbohydrate food, it turns into glucose, glycogen in the muscles, ready for use for the next day. Because again, we've had a lot of that slowly absorbed into our body. And then when you go do the effort, you can kind of utilize that. And that's kind of really cool. So that's something you have to kind of practice and get used to. So by me always carb loading and having a lot of carbohydrates the night before a run, or just having a lot of carbohydrates in general, high carb, low fat, vegan diet, you're able to have the energy when you need it so that you can consistently push on days that are even slower or days that are even harder. It's about setting yourself up for success. It's like how you plan the day, you plan the day the night before. It's the same type of concept by being organized. So when you wake up, you are not so hungry and like famished that you can't do anything. Like say if you didn't eat dinner at all, you'd have like no glycogen to utilize and you're feeling like absolute crap. So this is like what I'm trying to preach, and it keeps me lean all year round. And that's just kind of like the point about kind of the emphasis and importance of fuel that I cannot stress enough. If you listen to one thing in this video, it's that carb up and have lots of carbohydrates, rice, pasta, low fat as well. So the thing with a high fat or high fat content foods, like a lot of animal proteins or just fat in general, will basically stick your red blood cells, which transport like oxygen, which means that they won't be able to efficiently transport oxygen because it's all stuck together and they can't kind of like move in like if you imagine like moving down like a river. So we want to have like a low fat in that, if that makes sense. And then I guess that takes me to my next point. So the whole long run, turns out I did some research. My first long run was actually 6 months ago and the distance was 12 Ks. So I guess the long run, for context, can be as simple as a distance over or at 8 kilometers. It's a longer run that you would normally do during a week. If you're doing like 4K runs, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, say, a long run might be like an 8K or a 10 because it's the longer run, you know what I mean? It might be a little bit faster too. So you're trying to like, you know what I mean? So I noticed that it was about 6 months ago and, it wasn't overtly impressive. I think it was like a 5:30 pace and that felt pretty tricky as well at the time. So it was kind of cool to see that. Whereas we kind of fast forward, and so that was basically on the 20th of October 2024. So not that long ago. So then we fast forward to the half marathon. So it was basically 16 long runs later, kind of like every weekend I would do one. So after just 16, I was able to have the confidence to hit a half marathon like it was nothing. To be fair, I probably could have even done the half marathon at the probably 13th or 14th. If like, you know what I mean? Like in terms of was my body ready for it? Yes, probably. But just like a point of observation, for those listening along. So that was kind of really cool. So I guess you have to practice the long runs. If I kind of went from doing no run to a half marathon, I could probably do it, but it wouldn't be as enjoyable and you wouldn't want to go back to do it. And I think that's kind of what's really key in a lot of this kind of like culture of people being like, you just got to go and like do the hardest thing you can and so on and so forth. Yes, to an extent, but you have to somewhat prepare yourself and understand this is a marathon or half marathon, not a sprint. So that's kind of like that. And that kind of takes me to my next point in the preparation side of things. When you start running, you, without realizing it, become really good at building routes in terms of if I go from here to there and do that's going to be X distance. Or if I do this type of run where I have to run faster, I want to run around here because there's no like breaks or anything. It's very easy to kind of get in the zone. Or if I want to do like a long run, I'd rather see sights. I'd rather go from here all the way there and back, opposed to like just running in a circle for like, you know what I mean? 12 Ks. That's boring as heck. I find that personally boring as heck. You know what I mean? So that is something that's important. So when it came to me realizing that I wanted to run a half marathon, I kind of knew in my head that if I ran from mine about 8 Ks and then back at 16 Ks. So if I kind of ran, I just had to figure out how far it would be if I ran from here to West Beach, which is about like, I think it was 11 or 12 Ks. So then I'm like, okay, well then how far is West Beach to Glenelg? And that was about like 7. I'm like, okay, if I run past Glenelg at say the 19th, because Glenelg, I ran 2 Ks past Glenelg, which took me to 19 Ks. So Glenelg was 17. 19 was past Glenelg, almost at Brighton, halfway, I think. And then back, so it means you take another 2 on 19 is 21. Took me to basically getting back to Moseley Square at Glenelg, where the Ferris wheel was, being exactly a half marathon, but an extra 100 meters just to be sure, to make sure I could take care of that. So I guess that then that also, in terms of the preparation, you have to be like able to find like, the equipment. So you have to find comfortable socks that don't lead to blisters. You have to have shoes that fit you properly and are laced correctly. That's a big thing too. So for me, if I had to kind of run the half marathon when I just got my Nike Invincible 3s, I think it would be very difficult. But by breaking them in and kind of figuring out how to lace them properly, it felt more natural and it made it a lot easier and effortless. I think that was really key to that. And then also like the preference of how I like to do these type of long runs. So for long runs, I did listen to music at the start, but it was a bit funky. Like it was alright, but I just really couldn't like quite get in the zone. So I find for me now personally, I like to listen to podcasts on like, or audiobooks on longer runs. So I find that really like exciting and just kind of just, it's funny because if you run the pace I run a long run at, it's not so fast that I have to completely block everything out and just focus on breathing and keeping that speed. But it's not so slow that, you know, music would help, you know, give me some energy or whatever, or get me excited. It's kind of like you do it, and by listening to the podcast, you just somehow get into this state of flow, and you just like run. And that's kind of the big excitement I like about this like long run and wanting to do a half marathon, because you're in a state of flow, which is just amazing euphoric thing that athletes and other, you know, professionals and people of excellence, I guess, have happened to them, and that's kind of what they pursue, because it's like a very cool, it's like not too hard but not too easy either. It's like just that sweet spot of like challenging yourself and pushing. That's been kind of really fun. So that takes me to, I guess, like my next goal. Like I want to try to do a half marathon again on my birthday. Normally on the day of my birthday, I like to do a particular bike ride, and that's normally on a weekday, but this year it's falling on a weekend. So I want to do a half marathon in the morning because it won't take that long, and I want to see if I can do it in under 90 minutes in my race shoes. That'd be really exciting. And I guess another key point about doing this type of run is gels fuel during. So before I do these types of runs, or all long runs, I should say. So this is again kind of practicing at those 16 long runs. I learned something along the way. I have a glass of what's known as a electrolyte carbohydrate mix by Endura. It's actually pretty cheap, but it's pretty good. It's just sugar and some salts essentially. And basically what that does is that kind of gives me a little bit of a top up in the morning without feeling too heavy on my gut. So there's that. But then also around the 15, 16K mark for this long run, so half marathon, I had an energy gel. An energy gel is like this, effectively it's like a goo that's in like a little tube, and it's quite light. You just rip it open and then you suck it. It's kind of like baby food. And that kind of gave me enough zest to finish the half marathon and not bonk. So the thing is, you need to kind of eat before you get hungry when you're doing these type of events, because if you kind of go too hard and you're completely out of everything, it's not a fun place to be at, because you go significantly slower. So you kind of need to be prepared. So that kind of makes me think about, in planning to do so on my birthday, I'll probably have to have maybe a gel at the like maybe 10K mark, or similarly again with the 15K mark, but also practice having the gel while I am actually running. So that's going to be interesting too, because I kind of paused, had it, and then kind of again after 20 seconds I finished eating that, putting it in the bin, went back to it. So that's kind of going to be really interesting to try to do on the fly. So that's going to be fun. And then of course there's the sleep. That's important. You need to have a lot of sleep, just plain and simple. You need to expect the best out of your body. You need to have early nights. If you can get to bed at like 8:30, 9:30 at the latest, and and have a really good sleep, then you're going to feel like a superhero when you lace your shoes up and go running. So that's kind of like a big thing I would recommend, and kind of doing all these runs, I can see the importance of that, and that's what I recommend of you. So it's kind of one of my protocols as well. You need good sleep to be able to wake up and do crazy crap like this. So, and then that also takes me to the idea about, or the importance I should say, of having a good running watch. And this is kind of like really cool, because not only did it, help me dial in my pace perfectly, it had my heart rate measured, so I could kind of do all the analytics after. But at the bottom of kind of here, it actually told me the total time I'd spent running for that run. So I kind of knew that, like, in my mind, I was happy so long as it would be under 2 hours, which I was pretty confident I could do. And the fact it was kind of like 42, 43, was really, really awesome to know I was kind of that close already to doing a half marathon under 90 minutes. So that was really cool to kind of note that. I still have a bit of a way to go, I understand, but I'd say that a running watch is key, because for a run that long, it is important to, at that point, be really solid with your pacing. You want to be really steady and kind of avoid the risk of like running out of energy. See, for me, I did it that I was really steady the whole way through. I think only one of the kilometers was like 5 minutes and 24. Most of them were like low fives. And then by the final two, I think they were in kind of like the 4 minutes. And that was kind of really cool because what we try to do is we try to simulate the idea of a race finish, being that, you know, you want to have some left in the tank that you can just give it all at the end. And by doing that over and over and over again at practice, you can draw upon it when it's really difficult when you do the race itself. So that's kind of another thing I'm big in on doing, practicing that manifestation of that dream race finish, because you can't just call upon it if you haven't done it before. It's too much like a movie. You need to actually put the work in and know that, and you know, push your body and know that, you know, it can do that if you believe and practice, and that's what that's about. So I guess, and then another key part of this, I think, is just having a bike and just kind of using that to get to work and kind of just always being on the go. It's probably not a huge thing in terms of how much it necessarily has helped me be able to do this half marathon, but I think it's integral in the sense that every little bit helps, and playing the long game, just always kind of being active, every little bit will help. And by like going slower, you just continue to build your aerobic base. And that's kind of what's utilized a lot for that like long run. So, you know, just I think other aspects of fitness or cardio like cycling, which is not as high impact as running, is integral to have in your stable. And that's kind of my protocol. So if I could kind of tell you how I kind of conquered this mountain, it's simple. We have to follow the 80-20 rule. We have to ensure that we actually practice the long run itself. We have to be fueled the night before. We have to have really good sleep. We have to figure out kind of our shoes, our music, our route. So we kind of have to know the plan where we're going. We kind of want to take a lot of the stress out during the run, so the run just becomes effortless. And then of course there's heaps of other little things like ensuring that you're, you know, eating the gels during or having a top up before. And then just, yeah, understanding that we're playing the long game, and, you know, that's the main thing. And just having a lifestyle that's conducive for fitness, carving up, low fat meals, and you will conquer the mountain in no time. If you want to conquer a literal mountain in terms of being on the bike and support me as well in the process, you can kind of do exactly what I did in terms of how I was able to get a bike and conquer literal mountains. So I've taken you through everything you need to know in this ebook called Life Cycles, which is about 160 pages. It takes you through every single question you could have, including how to get the perfect bike for you in terms of size, where to get it and how to go about it, how to save hundreds of dollars on your kit. You save thousands on bike, hundreds on kit. And there's this fueling secret I've got that will save you like $50 every time you get on the bike in terms of your nutritional requirements, as well as bloods and so many other things to be considerate of in terms of recovery, how to push yourself on the bike, mentality. It's all in there. So as I always say, conquer mountains, conquer life. See you next time.